what's going on, guys? This is Lurkin from Mobalytics, and the new Season 5 of Diablo 4 is going to start in about an hour or two, and the biggest thing on everyone's mind is what do I level with? And I think you have you have three good choices. Those would be Chain Lightning, because that's going to be in the seasonal journey reward, so you will most likely get an Axial Conduit, probably relatively early, we will see. And then you'll probably get the new Lightning Rod aspect, you'll probably get some Unbroken Tether, and most likely you will get a recharging. That way it can regenerate its mana. Like Force Chain Lightning, the biggest thing early is mana. So when you first start out, you often have to use Arc Lash and Chain Lightning because you cannot sustain the mana. But the second you get that under control via slotting a recharging aspect, you'll gain 3 mana every time it bounces. And then you can also use a Prodigy. Using a cooldown restores 25 mana. And then once you sort of get your mana under control, I would leave recharging on, and then you can take off Prodigy and slot something like Shredding Blades once you have better vulnerable uptime. The enchantments here are Fireball and Chain Lightning for both of these. Fireball's just really amazing when you're leveling. Uh, it's just everything explodes, and then more chain lightnings out, kill more stuff. And if you're struggling with survivability, I would recommend dropping chain lightning enchant for firebolt, and then you take a bunch of warmth tempers. And warmth, let's try and get in here. This got massively buffed, so now you heal for a ton. And you can get a bunch of warmth tempers and just heal for 20-30% of your max life, if not more, when you're sitting there face tanking a boss. And then, so Chain Lightning is the one, but I think the strongest one may end up being Firewall or Incinerate. We'll go over Incinerate first. Incinerate was very strong last season, and that is primarily due to the flamethrower aspect on a staff. Now, when this is on a staff, Incinerate splits into 3 beams. Each of them deals 100, because it's doubled, 170% of Incinerate's normal damage. So in total, this one aspect on a staff, which you don't have to you don't have to find 2 new items to replace. You just have the staff. You're gonna get 510% of Incinerate's damage. And then you can top that off with Conflagration on the amulet for 60% damage. These are the only 2 aspects you really want to keep recodexing. And in case you're having mana issues, as always, we slot a Prodigy. And if things really get dicey, you can slot the new aspect, Elemental Acuity. This one right here, casting a Pyromancy, Shock, or Frostgale increases your mana regen by 20% for 5 seconds. Once you cast all 3, you get max stacks. If you cast all, within 5 seconds, it's increased to 120% for 10 seconds. So that can be really good. Incinerate's just great. I pair this with Ice Blade and Fireball enchant. Some people you can look into Firewall enchant over Ice Blade because it increases your burning damage when it goes off. But starting off, it can be spotty. Some people complain that it doesn't go off enough, so we just went back to Ice Blades. And with most leveling builds, we're going to take Fireball enchant just because clear mobs faster, more XP. Now, the next biggest one, I think may end up actually being the strongest leveling build. Well, I'm personally going to try Chain Lightning. It's been a while. I've done burning builds the past few seasons, so I'm really looking to do Chain Lightning just for a change. But it will probably be Firewall. Now this is like the traditional Firewall setup where you cast Firewall, and then every 3 seconds you hurl a firebolt into the enemies. And the reason you do that is because of Glinting Firebolt. It increases the burning damage you deal to enemies by 25% for 3 seconds, and it gives you a little bit of time to regen your mana. Firewall is very good on mana early because of Wizard's Firewall. For each Firewall you have up, increases your mana regen. And then once you get your mana under control, you get rid of Wizards and you take Mages. I'll have these all linked and stuff, but that's like the traditional setup. I learned this from Northwire when I was first starting out in his Firewall Firebolt leveling build, and now I've made my own now. And then another option too is Firewall Hydra. This can be a little fun. The problem with this setup is you really just have to wing it until you unlock Fireball. So like you can use Firebolt here for the time being until you get enough points to get Firewall. Or you can even run Incinerate, or you can run anything really, like even Arc Lash Hydra. You run something as a placeholder with Hydra until you get Firewall, and then the skill tree will be totally fine. I have a leveling path. I have all that jazz. The leveling path will be super scuffed until you get Firewall, which is right here at level 19, which I think is actually level 14 because of the plus 5 skill points that you get. I don't know. I forget. We don't level that often, and it doesn't take that long. But so I have a Firewall Firebolt, Firewall Hydra, and the reason Burning is going to be so strong is because Firewall got a huge increase to its base skill percentage. I believe it went from 160% to either 230 or 240%. It got like, I did the math, I think it was a 43% buff to its base damage, which affects all its damage as you go up in ranks, because every rank is 10% more damage from the base. I digress. Um, and then in addition, burning builds are extremely strong because combustion, right here, instead of 20% like it used to be, it's now 60%. So they have the second that you can get combustion, all of your burning damage is increased by 60%. Firewall has always been one of the strongest leveling builds out there. And the issue with Firewall, it always hit above its weight class. Like you could do the capstones early. You should be able to go to the capstones really early this season, like capstone 2, go to world tier 3 at level 30, if not lower, or just a little bit above that, and go to world tier 3 super early, like 40, like even maybe earlier than that. It's really crazy. But they did increase some of the boss health despite it looking like a nerf on the patch notes. um, so my leveling recommendations are, I think World Tier 1 and 2. I think you pick World Tier 2 now because I think it's worth it now because they changed some of the XP stuff. I think you just do straight Helltide and straight Seasonal Journey, and then you bum rush World Tier 3. And then if you can, when you're ready, if you think you can survive in World Tier 3, and then in World Tier 3, I think you do the same thing. I think you do Helltides because you're going to go so early. I believe you do Helltides and Seasonal Journey stuff, and I'm not sure when you're going to get access to Infernal Hordes, and I think there's this new seasonal dungeon type thing that isn't Infernal Hordes. I forget exactly what it was called, but it might be similar to Nightmare Dungeons. But you'll figure it out. If I'll look it up and I'll link it and stuff like that. Um, and then so in World Tier 3, you're gonna do Helltides and seasonal journey bullshit. And then I think once you're like level 50 or 55 or so, you can probably start doing nightmare dungeons. I think, level 30, level 40, it might be a little too hard for you, but then nightmare dungeons are still like the best XP and you get to start leveling your glyphs. And I think world tier 4 is basically nightmare dungeons, just like spam nightmare dungeons, level all your glyphs, maybe do a little bit of Helltide, stuff like that. So yeah, basically Helltide seasonal journey, and then once you're ready, just jump right into Nightmare Dungeons and bang it out. And I may be wrong, and if you want more information, I would look up Rax and see he probably has some crazy like leveling best strategies because they do all those speed runs where they level the 0 to 100 in like 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours. So check out his stuff if you really want to get nitty gritty on the fastest way to level. But these are just what I think are going to be the best leveling builds for Sorcerer. And side note, I have some leveling Frost builds, but I don't think they're that good. I just made them because I make builds, but I think they have mana issues, and I don't think they're gonna have anywhere near the damage that the burning builds are gonna have. And gearing is not gonna be as easy because Chain Lightning is in the seasonal journey. They're gonna give you a bunch of shit for it, and it's gonna be easy. You're gonna have all the aspects probably pretty early and stuff like that. So good luck on the season. I got all on the Mobalytics on the tier list. I got everything. Everything's updated. Um, I'm pretty happy with this tier list where it sits, but the ones that I have concern about are Frozen Orb and Blizzard. They might be A tier. Chain Lightning, it's probably S tier. It might be A tier. I don't know. They bug fixed it, so we'll see just how good it is. I think it'll be strong. And then Fireball and Lightning Spear, I might move to S tier. I was hesitant about moving Lightning Spear to S tier because it was so good at mobbing, but it struggled on bosses because the lightning spears, when I don't know, they just like are weird with the bosses. They like to fly off, and it's strange. So the bossing was a bit of a struggle, but we will see how it feels this season. And Fireball, it's poised to be really good. The Illuminator's buff was great. The Endless Rage buff was insane. That item's really good now, but I think it had, I don't know. It probably is S tier, but it had a lot of ground to make up to catch up to the likes of like Blizzard and even Frozen Orb. Um, so just how it had to make up that ground, and how much higher is it going to go past that? While Frozen Orb and Blizzard also got buffed, so it's got to go like that. So we'll see. But I think every sort build is going to be really good. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these. I think some, obviously some are going to have a higher ceiling, but I think for all intensive purposes of playing the game, of farming tormented Uber bosses, of masterworking your gear, getting into pits, and then eventually like, semi speedrunning or speedrunning pit 101s, which is the most efficient way to get Neath Iron to upgrade your gear that we currently know of. Who knows? There's additional ways to get Neath Iron this season, but it's, pit 101s, you just blam them out. I think every single Sorcerer build is going to be pretty good at doing that. I don't think a single Sorcerer build is going to struggle or have a hard time in pit 101 with like decent 8 out of 12 gear or 4 out of 12 gear with no Ubers. Just like your base uniques like Telrasha, Asu's Heirloom, Tibalt's Will, Blue Rose, Illuminators, stuff like that. Just like your base uniques that you get from the entry level bosses, the Uber, like, Grigor and Varshan and stuff. You're not going to need Uber. You're not going to need Starless Skies and Harlequin Crust to like do well in 101s. Sork got such a huge buff from base across the entire board. The class is very good. It's gonna feel a lot better the second you step into Endgame and start to gear. So how good your gear needs to be to do those 101s and start engaging in the tormented bosses is much lower. It's just a lot more user friendly, and it's gonna be a good time. And it's a great way to stay in shape. All right, I'm out of here. We got 2 hours now till the season starts. Best of luck, guys. Don't be afraid to DM me questions. I get a lot of questions over and over, but I still answer. I'm here. I'm here. All right. Sork's looking up. Barb's looking down. Life's good. See you guys.